now for about 34 years. And when we studied engineering back in the 60s, that really dates me. I remember we spent a lot of time always on things like the ideal thermodynamic cycle, the frictionless plane, the gravity-less acceleration, you know, all the things that were sort of ideal systems. And one of the things about a net zero home is that it's sort of like a frictionless plane, like you're achieving something that is once thought to be, you know, unattainable. And what's interesting about this home, to my knowledge, it's the coldest climate house in the world that has been trying to achieve net zero energy. If this house were just built using conventional walls, these days people have roughly 2x6 walls with fiberglass pads, and double glazed windows are common, and maybe R35 or 40 in the ceiling. It would probably consume about 40,000 kilowatt hours of energy. But because of the features in this home, it's consuming, it's projected to consume zero. Now, if the people who move into the house have 5 of these TV sets and they leave them on all the time, it's very unlikely to be a net zero home. So it's how one operates the home is a big factor in you know, the overall performance. But it always helps out to start with a very conserving one. My talk here will kind of focus on Western Canadian homes over the years that have achieved, you know, substantially better performance than their peers. And I'm just going to take my old coat off here. I recognize a number of people in the audience. In the back row there's Harold Orr's daughter. Harold is one of the persons in my life who's most influenced me in terms of his understanding. Harold and I worked together at the National Research Council for a number of years. And Harold had a wonderful training for work in this area. He started out as a journeyman carpenter, and then later got his master's degree in engineering. So he knew both the very practical stuff and the theoretical, and made tremendous contributions to the industry. First thing is, who gives a rip about this kind of building? Well, the first thing is, I'm giving this talk in Nova Scotia to the home builders there. So I kind of tuned it to the Maritimes. And if you've ever been to Prince Edward Island, there's no mountains on Prince Edward Island. It's a very fertile province. They grow wonderful potatoes. It's the garden of the Gulf, but there's not very much elevation in Prince Edward Island. And right now the oceans are rising at 3 millimeters a year from the melting of the ice caps. And also the fact that the oceans, as they warm, even if there was no ice, they'd still be expanding a bit because of the temperature rise. And all of these coastal areas like Florida in North America, a good part of Bangladesh, the Maldives Islands, the average elevation in the Maldives right now is 1 meter. And it's amazing how much, you know, people like to live on the coasts. If you've ever read that book, The Wealthy Barber?
Yeah.
He always says, buy as close to water as you can afford, you know, for a house. And, you know, right now we are really not serious about limiting this. If we were to build houses and buildings like this, though, we could eliminate 40% of the world's energy consumption because that's the number. 40% of the consumption of the world is in buildings. So if we could replicate that on a global basis, would be a major accomplishment. Other nations and other jurisdictions are wising up to this. By 2016, the law is that all new dwellings in England will have to be carbon neutral, or like this particular home here. And in California, they've got a plan by 2020 that all new houses will have to be net zero energy. So it means that they will have to produce on-site as much energy as they consume. I was in Estonia in September at a meeting with a client, and I met this fellow who's involved with this project in England. And they're building, and it's just about completed. You can go on the internet and look. It's a 10-unit net zero energy housing complex. This electric utility, Scottish and Southern Energy, is the sponsor for this. And their reasoning is, look, by 2016, all houses, we better get, what's involved with these things, and what kind of, here in Canada, so far we've only basically had individual houses that are net zero. There are about half a dozen now in Alberta that I'm aware of. There's a couple in BC that are under development right now. There's a multifamily building in Winnipeg. There's about 3 in Ontario. Starting to get some traction, but here's an artist's rendering of the building. It's near Heathrow Airport, sort of Greater London side. And when you have net zero homes, it's always pretty easy to tell where south is. You can see here the orientation of the roofs. They get extremely little snow in England, so they have a fairly low tilt on the thing, and they also it tends to be sunnier in the summer period. So their solar collectors are at a fairly low tilt angle, something like this. Here at this house, we've gone more like about that angle, and there's a few reasons for it. We get more if we went with a steeper angle. And the other problem, if we have a low slope like this, we'd have a lot of snow buildup on the collectors. That would be a problem. And I've got how many homes in Saskatoon are solar heated? No, I'll just let you think about that one. The first house I was involved with was built in 1977 in Regina, and here's a picture of it here on the south side, and it was quite a revolutionary home for its time. And I still go to conferences now, and people will show this picture here.
And that's right in Regina?
Yeah, on 211 Rink Avenue is the street address. And it's changed a bit since the people have actually put a garage out in front of the home here. These insulating shutters here, they look a bit like aircraft spoilers. They've been removed. One of the reasons was in the wind that they would vibrate, and it kind of made the people edgy in the home. And they have these vacuum tube solar collectors here. And if you look out the window, you can see the vertical ones there, just by Catherine. They're tubes about, 3 inches in diameter, they go like this. And this house was 1977 vintage. And any net zero home in virtually anywhere in the world will have to be using the sun in almost all instances. There are a few that are using just the wind.